There we go. Finally. Finally. Oh, you know what I never did? I never posted it on Facebook.
You suck.
Let me do that. Check to make sure our audio's working.
It is.
All right. Cool.
Hello, world.
What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaiju no Kami from the Toku and Animation News Network. Actually, I wouldn't be able to get this to go post on Facebook from here anyway. So, oh well. Because I don't know how to post a link on Facebook from...
that's easy.
From Twitter. I can't just copy and paste this thing with the link in there.
Oh, well, hand it to me. Let me see.
I can copy and paste the text, but I can't copy and paste the link.
Well, here. Have any fun.
Well, no, because there's no point. Let's just get on with it.
It takes 2 seconds.
It's fine.
I know technology.
Then do it on your phone if you can do it.
Well, I don't know the text.
Just go to my Twitter page and do the text. But anyway.
Wow. This is a great live stream, isn't it, everyone? Just watching a couple.
Well, is our audio working?
Yes, I told you it was.
Okay. Well, it's because the damn thing wasn't working properly.
Hi, everyone.
So I didn't get to do that because I was distracted.
Well, let's start the live stream since people are just watching you get all flustered.
All right. Well, there should be a lot of that going on in this discussion.
This has nothing to do with the discussion. This is just you. So you... Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Cruellica Kain. This is the Kaiju no Kami. And we're here to talk about what?
Doctor Who. The Ncuti Gatwa era.
Well, it's not Ncudi's fault.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying it's a shitty era. But I'll go into why as we do this video. So he had... Well, first let's go to when he was first announced.
Yes.
When he was first announced, I was excited. I had no idea who this guy was.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, he looks like he could be an awesome doctor. And when they showed pictures of him dressed in that coat and everything, I was like, he's going to be an awesome doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited going into it. And being that they said RTD was coming back, I was like, oh, cool, finally. And what was your saying?
What did I say?
Daddy's back?
Oh, yeah, just because I like kink, so.
Daddy's back, so your whole saying was, finally, Doctor Who's going to be good again. Make Doctor Who great again.
Well, I don't know if I went that far. Now I'm a little scared of what you're telling me I said. No, I'm kidding. But
so we go into this new era after he has a brief appearance in the last special. The Church of Ruby Road.
Okay, well, let's keep on Ncuti Gatwa first.
Well, no, we have to talk about his progression.
No, I wanted to talk about one more thing from him before we get into the doctor. And I shared your precious post.
Okay.
So see, didn't take long. I can even download your videos.
Okay, yes. But...
So anyways, so with Ncuti Gatwa, he...
you just said Ncuti Gatwa.
Ncuti. I didn't say shitty. But anyway, with Ncuti Gatwa, when he was cast, there was a couple of things I liked. One, I said for Daddy's Back, it was more for Russell T Davies, just because I really did like his era of Doctor Who, especially with the whole Bad Wolf storyline and everything like that. But one of the reasons why I was excited about Ncuti is he was one, as my loving husband said, he was relatively unknown. So it was more of, he had an acting career and everything like that, but it's not anything we would have watched ourselves. Two, having someone who's African-American, not African-American, but
Black,
yes, who was a person of color, was, I think, a great progression because, yes, we did have a person of color as a doctor in Whitaker's era, but the challenge with that was she was regulated to more memory focused things. So we didn't have
even though she really should have been the doctor.
And what's her name again?
Oh wow. Now
you love her too.
Jo Martin.
Jo Martin. So when Jo Martin acted as a doctor during Whitaker's era, during different memory storylines, she was incredible. And I thought there were times where she could give lessons to Whitaker and some other actors that were on the show.
Yeah, she was able to handle shit-nose material.
And she was incredible. So having come off of that and have somebody who's a person of color again be the doctor, I thought was incredible because during Chibnall's era with Whitaker, one of the challenges was that I always felt the writing was more for a masculine doctor. They didn't allow for more of that femininity that having a female doctor could be.
The only time they really did anything on that was the Witchfinders General episode when the guy says, why am I going to listen to a woman?
Well, exactly. So I would have loved to have seen a little bit more during like the suffrage movement or maybe different things that really could affect women more so. Not that they had to do that, but I thought that could be impactful because one of the things that the doctor throughout all of his era, all of their eras, I mean now, is that they never really played upon the literal dynamics of black and white, male versus female. Many times, some of the companions or assistants, whichever they were called during different eras, were, if they were female, they were sometimes regulated to being a sex symbol or literally an assistant. And that's not to say anything wrong because that's the nature of the eras. However, I always wanted something that was a little bit more nuanced at times. So when we got to Gatwa being a person of color now, the excitement there was, okay, maybe we can do some more things about racism, which admittedly we did. So it's not to say we didn't. And it wasn't overly, all the time it was very subtle, which I appreciated. I even appreciated...
Well, I did like him, the one in Lux from season 2, when he makes the comment, yeah, we're in 1950s Florida. Oh, I'm in 1950s Florida as a black man.
Well, yeah. So, and when they're in a restaurant and they're like, okay, we can't be over there because of what we look like, which I thought was impactful because not that you want to slap everybody in the face with all the terrible things that have happened throughout history, but you want to remind people that these things did exist and sometimes they still do exist. So then you take upon it having a black man who is within the community. That's what a lot of people call the LGBTQIA plus is the community, just because you have so many different types of people. And I was like, oh, that's going to be cool, but that's going to be hard because Gatwa coming in as a person playing a member of the community, even though he is a member of that community, is going to be hard because more often than not, the doctor is presented very straight. Even though they have made hints, they have made comments throughout many of the eras.
And we had the Doctor and Yaz
yes.
in the previous series.
But it's very straight or straight leaning. So I was going to be curious to see how they would handle that because this world that we live in today is very different. but is also very homophobic.
Well, the homophobic is more vocal now because they have social media as a platform.
I know. And I think that would have been kind of interesting too, in a way, to play upon the homophobia of why people have fear of it. I do believe homophobia is wrong. I believe everybody should be treated as they are. But
you don't have to like it. You just have to respect
exactly
the person's choice.
Well, that's exactly it at the end of the day. But not to get preachy. That's not my intent here. I just wanted to share some of the ideas I had for it. Now, getting into seasons, we can go into that because that plays some dynamics too that are interesting.
Well, first we had the church on Ruby Road, which I thought was a really strong introduction to the new Doctor. We had the storyline where the goblins are kidnapping people. We have a baby being kidnapped who's being cared for by a woman that was adopted. So she's watching this kid that her adopted parents is currently watching over. It gets kidnapped by goblins. We had this really cool goblin sequence, which I feel like every time a Goblin King is on screen in a movie or a TV show, it's some sort of musical song for the Goblin King. Because we had it in...
Well, even David Bowie did it back in the day.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Labyrinth, the Goblin King had a song. The Hobbit, the Goblin King has a song. And now we've got the Goblin King having a song.
Yeah, but I will say David Bowie's Goblin King is...
But I thought it was a really strong introduction.
Well, yeah.
And it gave us this interesting mystery of what is really going on. Like, we had the introduction of Miss Flood, where it seemed like she knew what the TARDIS was, but she didn't really say anything about it. And then we have our actual season premiere, Space Babies, which not exactly a strong point.
Which continues on the story of Ruby Sunday.
Well, the whole season's Ruby Sunday.
Well, yeah, Ruby Sunday is the companion. And she's the young girl who was adopted by, which I absolutely love, a Black family. So her mom is this wonderful human being. Her grandmother is also the snark. I will say Ruby Sunday's grandmother, can't remember her name, but she is my spirit animal because she is snarky, but in such a loving manner.
And thirsty.
Oh, yeah, no, she is as thirsty as the desert. But the family is just, it's so wonderful because Ruby's mom, oh God, I wish I knew all the actors' names for this because they both seem like they are notable actors. She has on her fridge, which I thought was so wonderful that you see, and you actually see it multiple times throughout the series. On her refrigerator, she has pictures of everyone that has come into her house temporarily or permanently as a family member. And I just thought that was glorious because that really shows how much love was there that Ruby, even as an abandoned child, so to speak, has. But yeah, Space Babies was silly, but I also thought it was fun in a ridiculous manner because
the monster was made of snot.
Well, that was disgusting. But I will say the ridiculousness of it did remind me of something RTD would do. And just like with the Goblin King episode prior for the Christmas special, you also got this feeling of, yeah, this is definitely being produced by Disney. Because there was this wholesomeness to it that you don't necessarily get in any of the previous seasons of the Doctor. Not to say that Doctor Who isn't wholesome ever, but Disney's wholesomeness definitely shines through.
Thankfully, though, that we had the Devil's Court as the next episode.
Oh God, that was my favorite episode.
That
a long
was an incredible episode. Actually, reevaluating the first season, that probably was my favorite episode. No, that's my second favorite episode of the season. But,
so the Devil's Cord, I will say for a 2-for-1 was my favorite because one, it's an episode about the Beatles.
Which is weird though because they don't have the rights to do any music from the Beatles, so
that's because they don't have Michael Jackson's
So they
families.
don't actually have the Beatles.
Well, and the funny thing is because the masters are actually owned by Michael Jackson's estate. Because many, many years ago, he bought the masters to...
That's so dumb.
Because the weirdest thing is, musicians don't always own their music. Unless they have something contractual.
Now, are all the members dead?
No, there's 2 left.
If there's 2 members left...
Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney are still alive.
Then they should own rights to everything. It should be up to them if a show can use the music.
Well, they do get some say in it. So some musicians get a say, but sometimes it is based on who owns the masters. Because there's this whole dispute right now that Taylor Swift just bought her masters for $500 million. Her own music she had to buy back.
That's so stupid.
But not to get too far down it. It was an episode about the Beatles, so it was very cool.
Well, it wasn't really about the Beatles. They were just...
Well, yes, but it was in that era because the coolest scene of the episode was really when Ruby and the Doctor, where they got to the street where Abbey Road is. And they did the crossing of the Abbey Road, which is a notable cover for that album. Where the 4 Beatles are.
Yeah.
So I love that. If I go to Great Britain, there's only one place I want to see. Like I legit want to see. Everything else is cool. Just that spot.
Okay, but we are introduced to a really kick-ass villain
called the Maestro,
Music Maestro.
Just the Maestro.
No, Music Maestro.
Their name goes the Maestro.
Whatever.
But
it says Music Maestro on everything online.
Oh, well, they said, and I say they because the villain's actor is Jinx Monsoon, who anybody who knows Drag Race or even Broadway, off-Broadway should know that name.
But that was a really good episode. Maestro felt like a classic villain.
Mm-hmm.
Was pretty badass. My favorite sequence in that episode was when all the sound is turned off.
Oh, yes.
And you had the Doctor and Ruby just running through everything to hide from the Maestro and no audio at all.
It was that I think was actually very terrifying because there is something terrifying about anything. Movie, music, more so for people who hear. I will say for somebody who is hearing impaired, it's probably a way of life for them. But if you are able to hear and then not hear anything, it's terrifying.
It reminded me of the Batman Beyond episode where they first introduced Shriek. And in order to locate Batman, Shriek turned all sound off except for footsteps.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just footsteps was the only sound effect during that sequence. But I thought they were a really cool villain, and they hinted at a new batch of villains called the Pantheon.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't think we got all the Pantheon yet.
No, we haven't. But they talked about, because the Celestial Toymaker was one of the members of the Pantheon. Mm-hmm. I don't remember them calling them him saying the Pantheon in the Tenet episode. But yeah, so we have this new introduction of, there's the Pantheon, which sounds pretty awesome.
Gods.
Essentially.
Yes. Space gods.
After that comes Boom, which was the episode where they're on a space mine with a space church army.
Yes.
And we have the first appearance of the actress who becomes Belinda in that episode.
Now, I will say I wasn't a fan of the Space Church only because I actually thought the Space Church that we had in the second episode for Amy.
Well, no, I was not the second episode, but
with the angels, I mean.
Yeah, the
Third
angels.
Episode.
I was gonna say, wondering if that's the same organization.
I wasn't sure. I felt it was very different, but I will say, Boom. Basically, Boom was okay to me. It was a good episode, but I don't feel it was strong enough of a story for everyone to be able to not feel like it was padded. I don't know your thoughts, but that's how I felt.
I was kind of bored with it, and I was surprised because it was a Moffat written episode.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like it was anything special. I know some people are like, "Oh my God, that was the greatest episode in 5 years," and I was like, "It was okay."
Well, I don't denounce anybody. There's probably people out there who love the Whittaker era, and I'm not going to pick on them for that.
I know, I'm just saying.
But
I thought it was kind of a boring episode. After that comes my favorite of the season, 73 Yards, which is weird because it was a Dr. Light episode, but it was a very horror-oriented story.
It was very dark because 73 Yards is really about, more so, I think, Ruby.
Yeah, it was Ruby. The doctor just disappears on her because they accidentally broke some barrier thing. And then she sees this being 73 yards away, but no matter how far she walks, it's always 73.
Exactly 73 yards.
But then it seems like it's actually following her around. And anyone that goes up to it just disappears, or they run away from Ruby.
Because we also have Kate in this episode as well. Because she wants to help. And when she goes 73 yards out, I think she does.
No, I thought it was her team.
Her team did, and they called her, and she became suspicious then of Ruby.
Yep. And then it goes through Ruby's life.
All the way up to her death.
And there was some politician that she was supporting who was actually evil, so she had to use the creature to scare the guy off, and then to change history because he was going to cause some sort of war. And then she dies and finds out it was herself that was that being, but we don't know why. We never knew exactly why.
Which, in a way, I actually like that because by not knowing why, you have this mystery of...
But it was a great way of developing Ruby's character.
Which proved that Ruby, for being newer in her career, or early in her career, she has the skills to do a lot.
And then right after that, we have another Dr. Light episode, Dot and Bubble, with the most useless, unlikable Gen Zers ever. Because they can't do anything unless their virtual cell phone...
Wasn't that an episode about racism at the end as well?
Yes, but was poorly done.
Yes.
Because when the doctor shows up on her screen, she's like, "What are you doing there? You shouldn't be here." And
we think when she's saying that, of "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." Initially, the thought was because
people aren't supposed to be on the planet.
Yes, but you come to find out it's because he is a different color.
She was so useless. She couldn't even walk
Well,
if she didn't have someone telling her what direction to walk in. Like,
well, the allegory for this, as frustrating as it was, the allegory that I did appreciate was the fact that the longer we have technology and the more technology becomes almost a part of our lives, the less we have autonomy. Because we find out that this planet is actually where parents send their kids out of frustration. Because their kids are
spoiled little brats who deserve to die.
And so they do this as a way of kind of hiding their kids to reform them at the same time. But being that I work in an industry, not the type of company I work for, but work in human resources, one thing I do see a lot of, and you see it more so as a teacher, is this dependency on kids to have access to their cell phones, to be able to engage, because many times they don't feel like they can have the answer or think of the answer themselves without technology.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not at all to say that this is the entirety of Gen Z or the entirety of just younger generations from younger millennials on forward to today, because Gen Xers, baby boomers, and everything like that, they're just as bad. It's just the younger generations, that's all they've known.
But this episode, the girl was a worthless piece of crap. She gets a person killed intentionally to save herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even have any repercussions for it.
No.
We don't actually see any consequences to their actions in the end of the episode.
And she actually, I believe, goes back to where she was.
Well, no, they were taking a boat to leave. Now, the doctor did say if you go out there, you will die, but we didn't actually see them die. So as far as I'm concerned, they didn't die because we didn't actually see them be punished for who they are.
That's because you're used to comic book logic. If you don't see a body, they didn't die. All
right. After that comes our two-part finale, The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, which brings back a classic villain as a CGI beast. But, well,
I know. You're a CGI beast. It's going to get worse when we talk about season 2. So.
But in this case, it sort of makes sense. Well, first there's been this woman that has been appearing in every episode as a different
Flood.
No.
Oh.
Susan Tech, who's shown up in every time period as a different person. One of the nurse on the computer was one of the ladies handing out food in the music studio. And they show us versions of her and aliens they met off screen.
Oh yeah, that was a frustration for me.
So we haven't had much development between Ruby and the Doctor's relationship at this point.
Because it's only been...
Oh wait, no, I did miss an episode before that. But Rogue.
Oh.
But the problem I've had so far is they just keep telling us Ruby and the Doctor have built this relationship. They're not showing it to us.
Yes.
And Rogue is another one where we're supposed to believe the Doctor and Ruby have built this relationship. And
like there's a love between them. Not romantic love, but just love.
But we never actually see it built. So then we have Rogue, which have them exploring this like Victorian type thing going on, and people are dying by which turns out to be these bird creatures. And there's another mercenary there named Rogue. Well, and they decide to have some dance and party. Well, Ruby is off nearly dying.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, I liked this episode a lot because I thought it was well-paced. And I liked the mystery behind Rogue because he's ready to kill the Doctor. But then the moment he sees all the Doctor's iterations, he stops. So I was like, oh, he's probably going to actually be River that has regenerated.
Oh.
That's my thought process. But nothing is ever touched upon. And the episode is just like, okay, that's how it ends. Okay. Cool. But yeah, so now we come to the well, I guess, what did you think of Rogue?
One, I thought it was very different just because it was an opportunity to see kind of something that you would have gotten from Barrowman in Tennant's era, where you would have gotten that Merc aspect. However, there were times it fell flat to me because they were trying to build this like not relationship, but this interest, so to speak, between the Doctor and Rogue. And it was well paced, but I felt like they didn't, it was surface level. It didn't feel like there was any impact. A lot of this season, I will admit, is very surface level with a lot of their relationships. It's on the surface that the relationships that they exist, but you never feel the relationships.
No. Like I said, it's a lot of tell, not show.
Now, before we get to the two-part finale, I will say, as we're going through all of this, a couple of things I've noticed is, one, Ncuti is our emotional doctor. Now, it makes sense because that bi-generation with Tennant, and the one thing that was said during that mini-series, so to speak, is that that Tennant has never had a chance, the Doctor, since the War Doctor on forward, has never had a chance to really breathe and be, because it's really going in from one hellscape to another hellscape and things like that. So the bi-generation was to allow, in a way, for Tennant's Doctor to kind of retire and heal.
And to be a safety net.
I'm excluding that, but it was allowing now Gatwa's Doctor to be that more emotion, because all of the trauma is with Tennant as he's healing, and everything else to start anew is with Gatwa. And so Gatwa, as the Doctor, is more emotional. And you do feel that. Gatwa, I will say, is very good as an actor. Now, when we get into season 2, after this two-parter, one of the things that you'll notice is that there's a change in his acting. And I have some thoughts on that for him outside of the Whoviverse. But moving into these two-parter, where we do get a lot of interesting callbacks to past seasons.
Well, part 1 was a very good setup because they have the Susan Tech mystery that we're talking about. We've got, and so all of this destruction was on the Susan Tech, not consciously thinking the term Sue Tech actually was in relation to Sue Tech from Pyramids of Mars.
Yes.
But the way they bring in Sue Tech at the end of the episode, where first they're reciting off all the different members of the Pantheon. They mentioned the Mara, who I would love to see return. I could have sworn the Mara was in Flux from Whittaker's 3rd season, because you had that guy with that snake tattoo, but apparently that wasn't the Mara. They have mention of the gods of Ragnarok from the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the Celestial Toymaker, one who apparently was in the Sarah Jane Adventures, and then a few others that we've never met before. And then Sutek comes in. He's a giant CGI beast, but I will say the reason I could accept him being that way is because in the Pyramids of Mars, where he looks like a living sarcophagus, they stay the doctor states that he is imprisoned in his throne in Mars. So I could say, well, he looks like that because he's trapped, so he looks like a sarcophagus. He can't leave it. Now he's not trapped. He's free, so he's able to retain his original form.
Correct.
But then they do one of the first biggest mistakes. Reveal that he has been attached to the TARDIS since Tom Baker's doctor fought him. So he's apparently been riding on the TARDIS the entire time, which makes no sense with the TARDIS being blown up during Matt Smith era. We have the TARDIS when it was nearly destroyed from the Living Planet in the episode where the TARDIS's personality is put into that woman's body.
Yes.
Which you'd think she'd be like, oh, by the way, Doctor, you have a giant monster that's just been like touching all up on me for the last several hundred years.
To say it like that, but yes.
So this whole thing like is just
well, and
dumb.
It's funny. The memes that came out of that though for Sutek were hilarious because people online were posting all of these meme pictures of different clips of Doctor Who showing Sutek on the TARDIS.
Like the one from the 50th anniversary where the War Doctor, Smith, and Tennant all had Sutek going, hey, what's up? So have we got... Where are you currently at in your timeline?
It's like, no. This is not to say that it is outside of the realm of possibility, but the challenge is it really doesn't make sense. It's kind of like the whole Doctor thing. Having the Doctor have many incarnations or many regenerations prior to whatchamacallit?
For what?
Prior to Hartnell. Because remember in Whittaker's...
Oh, yeah, where she's before...
Where Joe Martin is before Hartnell?
Yes.
What you doing?
I was trying to post something. Continue.
Oh, but... So there's a lot of different things that confuse the lore. This is not to say that it's impossible for the lore to be like that, but
Oops, not that one.
Sometimes it's a little frustrating when you try to add on to a lore, but you don't make it where it could actually be that way. Now, this is not to say that there couldn't be iterations prior to Hartnell.
Mm-hmm.
That's feasible. Because yes, they say that 13 regeneration, but if you think about the fact that you had the War Doctor in those regenerations that never had a show, you already had that 13 regeneration thing screw up. So it's not to say that there couldn't be other regenerations. I think the problem is...
This was the one I was trying to share.
Oh.
I was having... But yeah. Oh, hey, guys. Why am I like this? Do we do the death yet?
But that's my frustration, is that we need to have some semblance of sanity.
And then part 2 begins. And they... Thanos snap everyone out of existence. Everybody dies.
Oh, yes.
Sutek kills everybody, essentially, but the Doctor and Ruby. So right then and there, all that excitement from part 1 diminished because you know everything was going to be fixed by the end of the story, by the end of the episode. So all of that stuff was just like, oh. It's like if you're excited, you're going on a roller coaster. It's going up, it's going up, it's going up, and then it's just this the rest of the time.
So it's circling the drain. Are we going to be like, oh God, it's not Daffy. It's
Elevator
Plucky
go
duck.
down the hall.
it's Plucky Duck, right?
Baby Plucky.
Baby Plucky.
He's go down the hall.
Yes.
Elevator go down the hall. But no, I'm saying there is no other loop. You're going up, and then it's just the roller coaster going around in a circle on a single track
Oh.
without any actual.
I get you.
No, it's just. And you're all like, wow, this is boring.
Well, and I feel like they tried to wrap everything up in a neat little bow. And that's certainly fun because many times you want to, once you get to the finale, keep it where you close all those loops. But I do feel another thing that happened is they had to put Ruby in this stasis, so to speak, to protect her.
Yeah, because they also find out they're also trying to find why her mom left her there, and in the image they recorded, her mom's 73 yards away, so they thought that was something significant, which turns out it wasn't. It was just the moment it was recorded.
Well, and the sad part is that I really think they did nothing about.
Actually, I was just thinking about something. Because when they were walking around the TARDIS, the moment they walked behind the TARDIS, they disappeared.
Yes.
Died. That's actually, I just thought of that because that's what happens in The Well in season 2. The moment they walk behind the girl, boom. So I'm like, it just came to me like, oh my God, they repeated that.
Well, I was going to say they repeat the whole locking Ruby up for her safety in season 2 of locking up Belinda and Poppy. But one of the biggest frustrations I have about this, trying to find her mom, trying to do all of this, is they try to make it this big thing. And inevitably, the reason her mom abandons her is so tragic that they don't even acknowledge the tragedy because of the fact that it wasn't big and explosive. Because her mom is young.
She just gave her up because she didn't want to have a child at that time.
Well, also because her boyfriend was abusive.
Oh, yeah.
Her boyfriend, husband, I can't remember which, was very abusive. When she had her baby, she did not want her child to grow up in that type of environment. So she didn't abandon her because of any supernatural thing. She didn't abandon her because she didn't want to have a kid. She abandoned her in a safe place of a church, all because she wanted to protect her. And did they acknowledge the fact that the mom was in this tragic situation?
They didn't do anything with her.
Did they acknowledge the fact that her mom was going through a lot of mental health issues because of the abuse? No. And I'm not saying they had to make a big to-do about it, but I also feel they didn't do anything to acknowledge that she was escaping something really scary.
And it's something they could have covered in the next season.
Well, exactly, because I don't know about anybody who's watching, and I know you've never experienced this yourself, because as much as your parents are weird, they're actually good people. Yes, your mom's Satan, but she's still a good person at the heart of things. I grew up in a very abusive household. My mom was very young when she had me. She got married to an abusive man because in the 80s, the whole perspective was you need a man in your life. You can't have a bastard child. And so she put herself in that situation, and I wouldn't have faulted my mother as much as I love her. I would not have faulted her if she gave me up to my grandparents or gave me up for adoption or anything like that, being a newly 21-year-old having to be forced by society into a marriage when I was 3, just because the expectation was she shouldn't do it alone. She can't do it alone. So I would have never faulted my mother for giving me up for adoption even before she got married because of the way I was born or anything like that. But I think it would have been so great to actually talk about things like that. Because if you're going to talk about societal issues or politics or anything like that in your series, which they've been doing since the 60s, why not talk about things like that even today?
Instead of shoving down other aspects.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, you're going to tell me how wrong it is to pollute, but you're not going to tell me how wrong it is for people to have to feel they have no other choice between abuse and abandonment.
And then we have, though, Sutek is defeated by the doctor putting a rope around him.
Yep.
And dragging him through the time vortex.
Yep.
That...
Sutek, one of the most prolific villains of classic Who.
Despite being only in one story.
People love Sutek. Not love him as like...
Yeah, but a villain who was so powerful, the doctor only fought him once because...
And technically, he never actually beat him.
Well...
He trapped him because he was so powerful.
But, I mean, I love the concept of bringing Sutek back. I was so excited. I was like, yeah! And it made sense having him be one of the Pantheon. It's like, hell yeah! And then you kill the god of death by dragging him with a leash. What? I feel like RTD was trying to be too grand and had no idea how to actually resolve it. So he had to just come up with the most shittiest. He had a George Martin it.
Now we get to season 2. But,
well, first, do you want to go through some comments?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
But season 1, despite its faults, I did enjoy it. I thought it was a step in the right direction compared to the Whittaker run seasons. I don't look, as time has gone by, I've liked it less, but at the time I really did enjoy it.
For what?
Season 1.
Oh yeah. No, there's only really 2 episodes I think I will ever really rewatch of season 1. And that is The Goblins.
Well, 3 episodes for me.
Oh, 3 episodes?
Devil's Court.
Yes.
Church and 73 Yards.
Okay, yeah, 73 yards. So we have Dragon Zeron saying, "Hey man, how you been?"
Same as always.
That is his comment even to me. I ask him, "Hey honey, how are you doing?"
Same as always.
Somebody else asks, "Hey Kaiju," or "Hey Marcus, how are you doing?"
Same as always.
And my question is, when I go back to him, it's like, okay, did you have a bad... You were bitching yesterday. You mean you're still angry like that? You had a good day yesterday. Does that mean you're happy? Same as always tells me nothing.
It's left up to interpretation. People have to create their own narrative with what that means.
I'm like, we had a big knockout, drag-out fight. Not recently, but... And then I ask him, like, the next day, just make sure we're okay. Same as always. What does that mean? We argued for an hour.
It means whatever you think it means.
So, just so you know, I've been married to him for a very long time, and I still get that catch-all that makes no sense.
Almost quarter of a century.
No shit! So, then Dragon Zeron says, "I heard y'all were going to be moving to Florida." I say Florida, but Florida. Yes, we're actually going to be moving to Florida next month we're leaving here next month from Colorado on July 22nd, which is funny because I have a hiring event I'm doing on July 18th. So I work all day that Friday, all day that Saturday, and then I take meetings while we're driving. Well, because I'm not driving the entire time, just so I can finish up this hiring event and move simultaneously. Mr. Arrowverse says, hello!
But yeah, yes,
Oh, yeah.
we're moving to Florida. We're moving to the Space Coast area. So we've already got our hotel room for Ranger Stop in November.
Now, for anybody who's not familiar enough with Florida, the Space Coast is on the Atlantic side of the state. Space Coast comprises of Cape Canaveral Air Force Base, Titusville, Melbourne,
Which is where we're going.
Palm Bay. But yeah, we're moving to Melbourne.
It's about an hour away from Orlando and 2.5, 3 hours away from Miami.
Yeah. So it's a really good central location, and also because it's in this weird bubble, being on the Space Coast, it can get hit by hurricanes, but not like the areas of Tampa, Sarasota.
No, from what we were
Naples
told is that by the time the hurricanes get to that part, it's just a rainstorm or thunderstorm or
a Category 1, Category 2 at most. So yes, it's a little scary if you think about the whole hurricane aspect.
It's no different than getting a tornado here.
Well, I was going to say, it's kind of like having a tornado, a blizzard. It's a different natural disaster. But no, I'm excited because I'm hoping I can create like a work-life balance for myself a little bit better, since I'll be closer to a lot of my team and I can delegate more, that I'll be able to work from the beach occasionally or hang out on the beach while he's walking around
and fresh fish.
Well, I don't care about that.
Fish.
I don't eat seafood, so.
Okay, whatever.
And then we have sit back. It's bad for your posture.
I don't care.
So.
And Dragon Xeron had one other question.
Yes, I see. Do you think these doctors will merge or will there be two separate doctors going on? I actually think Tennant's doctor is probably going to always exist on the sidelines, and we're going to have a separate doctor that's going to go forward. I do agree, as you said, it's going to be a safety net, but I do feel like they're not going to merge. I actually feel at some point they're actually going to forget about Tennant.
Well,
as they continue forward.
I will give my thoughts on what I think the franchise needs to do after we cover season 2.
That's fine.
So I'm not going to answer anything on that aspect. I want to wait until we cover season 2.
And Mr. Arrowverse says, hello.
Yo.
And then we have, which finale do you think is the worst finale from the Ncuti Gatwa era of Doctor Who? Actually, we'll be talking about that in probably about 5-10 minutes. So,
it depends. It did take us a half hour to get through all of season 1.
Well, you know what I mean. Box Knight says, what up, guys?
Yo.
And then Comrade64 says, what's up, Kaiju and friends? Ooh, that's a nice title. Do like a little children's show with like a little plushie of Godzilla and have this whole Kaiju and friends where you can talk about different toy figures. That actually sounds fucking adorable. Thank you, Commander64. All right, Star Wars fan. I'm just going to read theirs reverse. Hello, Cruellica and Kaiju. Hi. And then my go-to answer when somebody asks how I am is, I'm good. What about you? Ooh, put it right back on them. Make them say how they feel. I usually tend to go with, oh, I'm good or I'm fine. And usually when I say I'm fine, most of my coworkers are like, what's wrong? I'm like, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine.
It's just like Star Wars. Nope, everything's fine here. We're all good. We're all good. Oh, everything's good. How are you?
Now, Dragon Xeron does raise a good point. I still feel like the War Doctor might potentially have had multiple regenerations through that. I could see that happening in a way because the way they talked about the Time War during the first season before Tennant.
Eccleston.
Thank you. When they talked about the Time War, when he made references to it during Eccleston and then Tennant.
But no, they did show us that Magan regenerating into Hurt.
Oh.
But when Magan regenerates into William Hurt is young. So by the time we see him, he's pretty old looking. So he was the war doctor for a long time.
Probably thousands of years, the way they talk about the Time War.
Well, it's hard to say because it couldn't be that long. Because the Doctor is only 900 in Tennant's run when he's 700 in the classic seasons.
Mm. So probably about like 1 to 2
Even
years.
Well, it's weird because Hartnell says he's a couple thousand years old.
They don't know how old they are. They've retconned their age so many times.
Well, obviously, but I still personally think that
because Capaldi's doctor from one episode is over 1 billion years old.
Does that count though?
I don't know.
From Clock Tower. But all right, continue.
So, Star Wars fan, wow, you are really channeling Silverquill with this comment. It's 29-hour drive from where you are to Florida. So yes, so it is a 29-hour drive. We're driving 2 vehicles. My dad is driving the moving truck, and between myself and Silverquill, because he doesn't drive,
I'm a forever passenger.
He's a passenger princess.
Forever passenger.
Whatever. But either way, between Silverquill and I will be taking turns driving because my dad doesn't want a backup driver, even though he's getting one. And my dad can drive 10 hours a day. And 10 to 12 hours a day. I can drive normally myself, if I didn't have to do anything for work with meetings, I can drive up to about 15 hours in a day because I take breaks. I don't just drive straight through because, oh my God, that would be mind numbing. I take breaks to use bathroom, go to different rest stops, or if you're on highways, at least here in the States, certain areas have these like rest stops or nature stops at the same time. Usually truckers end up going to them, but they're so cool because you can find out little tidbits about the state or the local area. So I like to go to those when I drive, and we'll be there for like an hour or two. So it's going to take us about 2.5 days to get there because we'll probably stop over for sleep at a hotel or motel. We'll probably sleep for a couple hours at a rest stop or anything. So we are leaving Tuesday, arriving on Thursday.
Yeah, that's the plan because we have it set to move into our apartment that Thursday.
Yes.
All right, and then Dragon Zeron says, if you don't remember, he's the one we met at Polymorphicon.
Oh!
That we were talking to in the hallway at the hotel when that guy stuck out like,
oh, that asshat, yes.
How dare
not the person we were talking to, the guy who came out from the hotel room.
How dare you have a conversation in this hotel? Florida
was late.
Doesn't matter. Florida is great, good weather, just a better vibe. Only bad thing is Florida Man and the political BS. Nice, I'm definitely going to try to go to Ranger Stop in November.
Political BS, I have family and friends who are across all of the spectrums, so I'm used to living that. I honestly ignore it for the most part.
And politics are bad everywhere.
Plus, I work for a company that is federal adjacent, so I live politics. And Florida Man has nothing on Buffalo stupidity.
Or the people who get high here in Colorado.
But I do want to get Florida Man the board game and see if I can spot the Florida Man as we're in Florida.
No, wait till GTA 6 comes out and then see if you can actually see those cases really happen.
If it ever comes out.
Let's see. Star Wars fan. I'm 22 hours from 22 hours away because they live in Kansas.
Oh, nice. What part of Kansas? Because I
Dragon Zeron says
they
live on the other Space Coast.
Yeah, there's There's 3 different space coasts in the country.
Oh.
Well, as far as I'm aware, from my knowledge, you have Space Coast, Florida. You have a Space Coast. Well, it's not like they do too many launches, and it's not like it's on water, but in Houston, we have a problem. And then in California, in the Bay Area, that's the other one I know. I'd be curious if that's where you're at.
No, I think Dragon Zeron's in Texas.
So it could possibly be the Houston area.
I think he said Texas.
Please correct if we're wrong, but yeah, Houston, the Texas area, because that's where SpaceX.
Yeah, he says below,
headquarters.
I have driven from Houston to Orlando, and the drive is not bad.
Yeah. But just so you know, I asked the most dorkiest thing to do. As we drive out to Florida, I want to stop in Texarkana. It's in Arkansas. It's at the border of Arkansas and Texas, because it's a place where there was a bunch of serial killer murders.
Let's see. Dragon Zeron also says, I still want to see what happens when a Time Lord regeneration runs out. Do they explode from a supernova or drop dead like a human? All we know is that the only time we've seen a Time Lord that passed expiration was the Master in the, what you call it? The episode that's like the Manchurian Candidate on Gallifrey.
Oh!
The assassination, God, what is it called? I can't think of it now. But so all we know is the Master survived past his last regeneration, and he basically looks like Skeletor because he's a skull in a cloak.
Yeah, but that's still awesome.
Mr. Arrowverse, Kaiju, I've looked up the episodes of every Doctor Who from the classic series to the new series. So the Doctor had the most episodes. So their name is the 4th Doctor with 178 episodes.
Yes.
Correct. However, classic Doctor Who episodes were 30 minutes long instead of an hour long, except for one Colin Baker season. So technically, if you want to match it up with modern Doctor, you need to cut the classic Who episodes in half. So Tom Baker, 178, cut in half would be... I had this before.
Well, 170. Well, if you take 100, divide that is 50.
Wow.
70 divided is 35. So that's 85. 8, that's 4. So 89.
Ooh. So yeah,
yes.
Basically, if you want to count it, then he was only in 89 episodes. If you want to match it up to the hour-long ones from New Who, or you cut New Who in half, or double it, I should say. So Tennant, instead of being in 55 episodes or 53 episodes, he was in 106 episodes.
But he still wasn't. Well, if you count it like that.
Well, I count 51 for Tennant, but other people have counted 53.
Well, probably the movies.
No.
But I'm not going to argue that because I have ADD, so I had to do something.
Okay.
Because you took away my phone. I was reading. Dork.
John Hurt, not William Hurt, for the War Doctor.
I thought William Hurt is somebody else, right? There is an actor, I think, named William Hurt.
Yes, there's William Hurt, there's John Hurt.
But they're not related.
Not that I'm aware of. All right, Arrowverse and the Doctor, who had the least episodes to their name from classic series, is Colin Baker with 31 episodes.
Was it really 31?
31, but remember, his first season was hour-long episodes. So he had 13 hour-long episodes instead of 26 half-hour episodes.
Is that why some of them felt like they were forever?
Possibly.
No, I'm kidding. No, I would say probably my least favorite Doctor is 5.
Davison?
I like Davison, but he was a great Doctor. It's just some of the storytelling.
For classic Who, he is my least favorite of the 7, personality-wise.
Yeah, I will say my favorite actor from Doctor Who, from classic Who, is actually Janet Fielding. Because she is such a bitch. I love her.
She must have been going crazy with Gatwa and Millie changing their outfits every episode. Because that's one thing though. Gatwa never got a actual true doctor outfit.
You know, I'm not going to complain about that because the styling they did for him was chef's kiss.
All right, let's see. Where are we at? 14th Doctor has 3 episodes. Technically, yes.
Yes.
How many episodes does Doctor Who series have if we combine classic and modern Who?
Oh,
I don't even remember anymore.
was there a counter for that?
There was at one point, but I mean, my book that I have that goes up through the snowmen with, or the part of Smith's final season, they had an entire count. They even have how many hours it would take to watch for each Doctor.
I hated the Christmas breaks I have. So I'm off from work. I have time to play video games. I have time to do what I want to do. No, we watch all classic Who.
Yeah, it's around like 900 something. Yeah, William Hurt is the guy who was from MCU that played Ross until he died.
Oh yeah, that's what I was like. Oh yeah, he's American. John. Well, I don't know if he is American. He played an American character, but
Do you think we're ever going to see Matt Smith in Doctor Who again, or do you think he's moved past?
I think he needs to come back to Doctor Who because his mover career sucks.
Well, that's just it though. He's in so many movies that I don't think he really cares about Doctor Who anymore. Because he's in that an upcoming movie. I can't remember what it is now. We saw the trailer for.
Yeah. Now that's to be fair to Matt Smith. I think he probably enjoys what he's doing. It's just some of the movies that he's in I just thought were terrible. But now coming back to where we are here, is this is, and I'm actually going to reference this here before the end. Gatwa, he was in the show prior to Doctor Who for about 4 years called Sex Education. And in that show, they talk, obviously, it's more of like the L word and other things like that, where it's a drama, but that has that whole sexuality scope in it. L Word was a show from early 2000s.
Oh, we used to carry that at Best Buy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you should have known about it. Anyways, since joining Doctor Who, Gatwa has also been hit up a lot for movies and other things. So Gatwa started as the Doctor in 2023. He also...
Well, he was announced in 2022.
Yes, but in 2023, around the same time he's starting Doctor Who, he's also in a big movie that came out, Barbie.
Oh, he was in that?
Yeah, he's in a lot of it. He's not one of the main characters, but he's like, because a bunch of MCU male characters are in it as well. So he's in that. And then in 2024, he's also in a miniseries called The Masters of the Air.
And he's in some new movie coming out.
Yeah, called The Roses. So he's doing other work alongside Doctor Who. It's not like...
Which is why we have 3 episodes with him barely present in his short run.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So unlike... I can't speak for the classic Who. I know it sounded like for the classic Who, when they were filming Doctor Who, that was their only commitment. And when they were done with Doctor Who for that season or that year, they could do other stuff. But when they're working Doctor Who, that was their job. For Tennant and Smith more so, and Capaldi, that was their primary job as well, was Doctor Who. But it seems like, I can't speak for Whittaker because she had a shorter tenure as well. But for Gatwa, it feels like his full commitment wasn't Doctor Who.
No.
Now,
And I also think it doesn't help because they filmed season 1 and 2 back to back in 2023,
mhm.
early 2023. So he had then no work for 24 and 25 if he was fully committed to Doctor Who.
Yes.
And Disney's contract was only for only 2 seasons, so they're also in a limbo right now at that time because Disney was not happy with the turnout of season 1 if they were going to pick up the series. So he ended up deciding before season 2 aired, he was leaving.
So I will tell you a fun little nuggets before we get to season 2 about Ncuti. So a colleague of mine, he is an American citizen, a dual citizen between America and Germany, and his father lives in England. So they went to England last month to visit family and things like that. Well, one of the restaurants they went to while they were waiting in line to get in, they were talking to this nice, as he put it, because he's in his 60s, this nice young man who every 2 minutes was getting interrupted by somebody saying, "Can we take your picture? I love you. I love you." And come to find out, as they all sit down for dinner, because they're sitting together as a group, because they're all friendly, it was Gatwa. So they didn't get into a lot of discussions about Doctor Who, mainly because my colleague, who's a friend, is far behind on Doctor Who because he was frustrated with Whittaker's first season. Nonetheless, they did talk about Doctor Who, and he did state, this was last month before the final episode came out, that he was leaving Doctor Who because of the fact that a lot of the criticism from people on him being black, of him being queer, was very difficult. Because even though he's in other movies like the Barbie movie, being in Doctor Who is really being on the world stage. And so he had a spotlight on him that made him uncomfortable at times, that he felt it was better to leave Doctor Who and pick up his career, since Hollywood was really knocking on his door pretty heavily. So I did feel bad for him after having this conversation with my colleague, because of the fact that that's got to be incredibly hard to go through all of that and to be shamed in a public stage, in a public forum, because you're queer and because you're emotional. And the other thing I think about when I think about the good and the bad from Doctor Who is that even if the writing is bad, even though we are so pissed off by Chibnall at times, we tend to blame Whittaker for that era, even though technically it wasn't her fault. It was the writing fault. Well, she's the greatest actress.
It's like Colin Baker. It was the writer's fault. His era was bad.
Well, yeah, but we blame Baker. I think you need to plug it in.
Yep. Better plug this in before it shuts off.
But so that's the one thing I will say when we do talk about Doctor Who, even though we're talking about the Ncuti era, we're not picking on Ncuti because it's not his fault.
All right. So season 2 begins. We've got the Christmas special, Joy to the World, which was kind of a fun adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Got to watch. It kind of reminded me of the Matt Smith episode because the Doctor was stuck living in the real world by real time.
Yes.
For a full year. It was because there's this hotel that can go through any time zone and anywhere for people.
And he's stuck without his TARDIS.
Yep. And the Doctor, another version of him, comes in, says, "You're going to have to go around the long way," and seals off the room. And so he ends up working with the lady in charge of the hotel, Anita, and there's this other lady there named Joy who it was weird. She becomes a star. And
Well, poor Joy, she is a lonely woman. She's very awkward. She's an introvert who's awkward because she has a hard time connecting with people, which I understand. I'm an extrovert who could sometimes be awkward because I come across very aggro.
You aggro? No.
But nonetheless, it's hard for her because she lost her mom. She's in that limbo state of life because she doesn't know what to do. Dating is terrible. Work is terrible. So
wasn't her mom died when she wasn't around?
Yes.
And she wasn't able to be there?
Correct. So there's also that element of shame and sadness because she didn't get to say goodbye, which I still feel with my grandfather. When he passed away, I didn't get to say goodbye to him. So it's always hard. You have that lack of closure. But so I actually really love this Christmas special because it was well written, well paced, and it allowed you to see so many different perspectives because even Anita, she is very awkward. She's very depressed. She doesn't have a lot of connection with the world, being we're living and working at a hotel. So it was very relationship heavy, which really demonstrated great acting by everybody involved.
And then we get to the premiere, The Robot Revolution.
Oh.
Which, and we've got, so Ruby has essentially left being a full-time companion.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who Miss Flood is. She's just made hints at who she is. We don't know who she is.
Get into the water.
But the Robot Revolution begins with this woman in a relationship, and I think it was 20 years later, she's a nurse. She gets abducted by robots, taken to this planet. The doctor comes to save her, comes in first, finds her abducted. He then goes off and ends up getting to the planet sometime before she does, mm-hmm. because of some timey-wimey stuff. And the robots want this woman named Belinda, who the planet is named after.
Belinda Chandra.
And the doctor's trying to find out why, and the computer running the world ends up being her ex-boyfriend, who is very abusive. And
well, not physically abusive, mentally abusive.
Yes. And the robots, they come to discover every ninth word that is said, the robots can't translate for some reason. Well, so they're doing this thing where they'll speak this gibberish, and the ninth word will be the word they're trying to be, whatever mm-hmm. goes with what the next word they're trying to say in the sentence. So we get this introduction of Belinda. Now, I did find it interesting that the boyfriend, every ninth word he said would actually be the truth he was speaking. But they defeat him and turn it into this like sperm joke that was disgusting. I was not thrilled with this premiere.
No.
I didn't actually really feel Belinda, but I did like at the end when she says, I don't want to be part of your craziness. Take me home. Mm-hmm. And then the doctor's trying to take her home, but the TARDIS will not go back to Earth. And she's like, stop playing around. Take me home. That was the only thing I did like about that episode.
Well, yeah.
But then we get our next episode, which was really good. We get another another member of the Pantheon, Lux.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love this episode. So, one, I love this episode because it shows old Hollywood where a lot of the cartoons that you watched tended to be prior to movies. And you had this really crazy type of artwork style for old world cartoons. And I've always loved those designs. I'm a fan of classic cartoons because of the fact that their creativity, their gender bending, their groundbreaking things.
So yeah,
that they
Lux
did.
traps the Dr. Belinda into, well, he can trap people into movie films.
Yes.
So he traps the Dr. Belinda into a movie film as an animated movie.
And he actually comes out of the screen. So it even takes this cool world Roger Rabbit feel where you have a cartoon interacting with people, which I love.
So, and then the Doctor, they go through a cartoon, then they end up breaking out of a TV and meet these fans
fourth
who
wall
are
breaking.
fans of Doctor Who because...
Well, I liked it because it was very tongue-in-cheek as the fans
But I felt it
made
dragged on.
comments.
I felt it dragged on too long, though.
No, I understand that, but the reason why I like this is we haven't really gotten into it. Only Murders in the Building, that show that's on Hulu, and Disney Plus as well, where in season 1 you actually have fans camping outside of the building, and they will engage with the podcasters, Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, Martin Short. And they become a part of the story as well, helping to solve crimes. So I actually like it because it does give this fourth wall break of they're actually a part of the story. And their commentary on Doctor Who is absolutely hilarious.
Well, yeah, so people have disappeared from this theater for several months. And the Doctor and Belinda go and investigate. And yeah, we get to meet Lux, the cartoon character from the Pantheon. But when they're going through, as I said, the scene with the fans, which there were 3 of them, which kind of made me think of the gods of Ragnarok, who were referenced, but obviously nothing came of that.
Yes.
Because I think it would have been clever if they had been the gods of Ragnarok, like how the mother, father, and child were in Greatest Show, that they're watching this.
I actually think it would have been cool if they did something for the Greatest Show on Earth, because that was another story where they weren't destroyed. They were just trapped.
And so, but obviously the day is saved because they beat Lux by putting infinite light on him, which I still thought was kind of a clever way to do it. And that's where the comment that I mentioned earlier, where the Doctor's like, yeah, this is 1950s Miami. Oh, I'm a black man in 1950s Miami.
I thought that was really clever.
But Belinda, the episode still starts off with Belinda pissed off that the Doctor won't take her home. He really swears to her, I'm not kidding. It's not letting me. Let's go take this like gun type device.
I thought it was like a guitar type device.
Well, it looks like a guitar, but also is it absorbs his energy so that they can go around at different time periods to absorb this energy to get back to May 24th, 2025. And she's just like, I must be home, which they never really explain why. Well, after that comes probably my favorite episode of Gatwa's entire run, The Well, which is a sequel, pseudo-sequel to Midnight, the Dr. Tennant episode. But it's thousands of years later when the planet is now just ravaged for minerals.
Well, yeah, because the Midnight was about the devil.
Well, not necessarily.
I know, but that's how people count.
It's who was mimicking. But we have the Doctor and Belinda find themselves transported onto a ship that's doing a drop of soldiers onto this planet to find whatever's going on, which gave me a Starship Troopers feel there with the way they're just dropped out of the ship in these suits. They come down and then they find out that there's only one cook left alive. Everybody else is dead. And anytime someone walks behind her, they are killed.
Yes.
And the Doctor then learns, oh, this used to be Midnight? Oh, crap.
Well, and it makes sense. Like, I know we talked about how they walk around the TARDIS and they die. With this, it's because you can't. It's because of the way it's done, where the focal point is this cook, as she also is, I think, hearing impaired.
Yes.
So the reason why she's alive is she cannot be swayed.
Yeah, she can't hear the creature. She knows there's something there, but she can't hear it.
And I think that was what was well done about it, is because you, as I talked about in the first season of Gatwa, when you have all the sound turned off for a hearing impaired person, that might not change for them because that's natural. But for us who can hear, you now have an experience where in this episode, the hearing impaired person is the only one who's safe.
And I did feel this episode, Gatwa really felt like the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I was really impressed with this episode. I was like, they're finally getting it. He's finally getting to be the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the episode a lot. It's very suspenseful, very tense, very well filmed. And then came the next episode.
Which one was it?
Lucky Day.
Oh.
Which we're back to a Dr. Light episode.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with the Doctor and Belinda coming during this carnival. I think it was in '99, meeting this kid who ends up having some abusive parents.
Yes.
And then the rest of the episode is all on Ruby. So we have a Dr. Light episode, which is already annoying because we are 16 episodes into Gatwa's run. No, not 16, but something like 8, 12, 13, 14 episodes into Gatwa's run. We now have a third Dr. Light episode. We have an episode surrounded around Ruby. Belinda has not had any development at all whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't trust the Doctor. She thinks he's screwing with him. Starting to think, okay, maybe he's not screwing with her, but that's it. We don't have any development built of Belinda at this point. But we have a Ruby-focused episode.
Which there were, to a certain degree, it was great to see Ruby back. But it did come a little out of nowhere.
Now, we're learning that Ruby has post-traumatic stress syndrome from everything that occurred in the previous season, which is cool. I like.
Well, not cool, but yes.
No, like there's character growth there.
Yes.
Then we have this aspect of we have her, a podcaster who was the boy from years ago, trying to find Ruby and the Doctor because he ran into them when they were fighting some wolf-type creature.
Yes.
Trying to find her. She comes up to him. They start going out. And he's actually got the material on him from the wolf. And the one sequence that was really well done was when she's telling him how things are going to go down. The lights dim. And you have this really well shot sequence about what the wolf creature is going to be like. And she gives him this cure. And they're going out. They start to continue going out. They're building this relationship. All of a sudden, second half of the episode, it turns out the whole thing was a hoax. He was using her with the think tank, which was a group from the premiere story of Tom Baker, that with the robot.
Yes.
And the whole thing goes to shit. I mean, it was already bad enough. It was basically gave me Love and Monsters vibes at that point. But the acting of this character, Conrad, takes a complete nosedive when he does his plot twist.
Well, I thought it was such a slap in the face. Because she feels like during the time that Ruby's with Conrad, she actually seems like she's healing. Like she's able to have some normalcy to recover and heal. And then when Conrad does this to her, and it does truly come out of nowhere because you don't know, honestly, why he hates the Doctor. You know why he hates Unit, because apparently Unit is this organization, which it is, a secret organization. There's so many secrets the government is hiding from people. And so I understand the frustration, because that's a modern frustration that people have. But it's done in such a way that you're like, wow, these people are just terrible.
So he was really just using her to expose Unit.
Yes.
And he's saying the whole thing is a hoax. Now, because this is a Unit-heavy episode, let me backtrack to last season.
Mm-hmm.
We have Unit up here. Unit is supposed to be a military organization to protect the planet from alien invaders. Secretly, yes. But Unit is people know Unit publicly. But they are a military organization. So last season, Unit is there when Sutek destroys everything. They do nothing. They're just there. They're in the background. They die. They come back. They're nothing. They're useless. When the Doctor fought the Celestial Toy Maker in
Tenants.
In the Giggle.
Yeah.
They were useless against him. They could do nothing.
But that's because he was powerful.
Fine, whatever. But Sutek, they do nothing. Here, they do nothing. So Conrad infiltrates their headquarters, kills one of their agents, goes up to the top of the building, and basically takes the whole group hostage.
Mm-hmm.
Military organization. But they're hostages. Because the organization is a checkbox. They're not characters. There's a girl in a wheelchair. A midget guy.
Little person.
A trans woman. When she's there.
Yeah, they don't do anything with Rose.
A robot who sits in a corner and exposit dialogue. And when Conrad shows up, his cover goes up. And he just, if I recall, his cover just goes up and he's left. Or maybe that was the Sutek episode. But he's just gone. Then there's this guy who I swear looks like a young Frank Grillo, who's supposed to be the military commander, and he just stands around like. So Kate, Conrad's going around trying to say all of this is a hoax. They're lying to Ruby. He's going to shoot Ruby or something. And Kate is like, okay, you want to see us as a hoax? Fine. Boom. Unlocks the wolf creature who starts eating on Conrad. And then Ruby's like, no. You have to let him. You got to stop. You can't let him die. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Well, and the problem with the check the box thing is I understand the frustration there, because diversity is important. I live
diversity is great, but when they feel like they're just there, just for the sake of being there, it is a complete insult. Where is this military organization that went into this facility, started shooting other soldiers up in a gun battle, doing their jobs?
Mm-hmm.
They're just da-da-da. Lion King.
I know.
They're just standing around gawking, doing nothing. Kate is the only one who actually did something in this episode. And then Conrad is imprisoned. The Doctor comes to visit Conrad. Oh, and this is the other thing I forgot to get into. When in the Robot Revolution, the Doctor says to Belinda, I was told about you. Don't know what that means. In this episode, the Doctor comes to visit Conrad to, like, hey, you hurt my friend Ruby Sunday. Oh, okay, yeah, so, well, blah blah blah. Oh, where's your companion Belinda? Is she not with you yet? Who? And so that's where that comment where, oh, I was told about you came from, was from Conrad. But it's like, you, blah 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 blah. You hurt my friend. If you do this, I'm gonna blah blah. Okay, Cool. What? You don't care? Why should I care? Well, just so you know, you're going to die alone at blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Then the doctor just leaves. Like, what was the purpose of him even being there if he wasn't going to actually do anything to Conrad? I'm like, Lieutenant Doctor would have imprisoned people in objects to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Smith's doctor left Solomon, the poacher, on the spaceship to be blown up by missiles. Capaldi's doctor imprisoned Missy for what he was expecting to be forever. Mm-hmm. Tom Baker's doctor blew up baby Daleks, killed the Rutan with explosives. All these other things. He killed a guy in the
Well, think about all the doctors who have done.
Colin Baker's doctor threw a guy into an acid pit, shot a Cyberman to death. McCoy has trained a girl to kill for him.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely has child soldier.
This doctor, but I'm going to give you a stern talking to. Maybe I'll write you an angry letter. And that was it. Nothing.
Can we move on now?
But then Conrad gets picked up by Miss Flood.
Miss Flood, yes. Yeah, so, which I agree with one of the comments. I don't know why he was needed at all.
For the doctor showing up? Neither do I. I felt that's...
No, for Conrad for later.
Yeah, that's... Well, the doctor wasn't needed in that scene at all. So then we come to the story in the engine. Now, I kind of liked most of this episode.
Story in the engine.
The one that had the barber shop where the guy...
Oh, I love that episode.
Where the guy proclaimed he was a Nazi. So there's a barber shop where people are stuck in permanently, where they constantly have to get their hair cut, but they have to tell a story as they're getting their hair cut. This guy, it starts out with this guy talking about his village being saved by the doctor when he was younger, and he has great admiration for the doctor. The doctor appears in Africa because it was in it was in, I can't think of the area of Africa it was in now. Not Zimbabwe.
But
so the doctor is telling Belinda he has felt very like an outcast being in white communities, and this one area he felt very welcomed in, which again was another tell not show aspect.
Yes, but I will say the episode itself was glorious.
Well, I haven't got to the. So the doctor goes to this barber shop and finds himself trapped in the barber shop with the other people. He starts telling a story to the barber, and the ship loves it. Well, it turns out the ship is a giant spider on what he used to call the World Wide Web, which I did like. Well, and then the doctor calls this guy out like, "Oh, well, who are you really?" And the guy's assistant apparently is the daughter of another god.
Yes, I think Set.
No, that's Sutek.
Oh, yeah.
But then the doctor, for like 30 seconds, has a transition to be Joe Martin's doctor.
Because the girl
traveled with that version of the doctor. But then it's weird.
Well, I do like the comment because of trickster gods. Because Anansi is considered in Afrikaner culture as one of the trickster gods. Like Loki and did they say Dionysus?
I think that's what it was.
Dionysus and a few others. And it was kind of funny because they talked about the fact that they watched the MCU movies and laugh at them and things like that. And so I like the fact that they made tongue-in-cheek about different cultures, how their trickster gods are all like. Because the guy claims to be Anansi, who is this trickster god and this trickster god. And the doctor basically comes out and says, no, all of these trickster gods and all of these gods are separate beings.
Oh, yes. The the daughter is the actual daughter of the real Anansi.
Yes.
But then the doctor reveals that he knows that guy's not Anansi because he has met Anansi because she's the daughter of Anansi. Yes. And that's where we have Joe Martin's daughter, who then makes a comment about her story never being finished.
Well, which was shady as hell.
I did like that little aspect. So he asked the guy, okay, but who are you really? Because I actually have met Anansi. I have met Dionysus. I have met Loki. I have met all these other ones. Because as the show has established, the gods are technically aliens that people thought were gods.
But they are extremely
So it just turns out that he is a guy who made stories that wrote the gods their stories, and they stole his work. So he wanted to kill them by making this spider mech ship super powerful in some manner. I don't remember how. And well, Belinda, like all of a sudden, halfway through the episode, Belinda shows back up in the TARDIS and is like, I need to go find the doctor. Goes out, gets lost and almost arrested in this group because of all these people trying to sell her stuff that she doesn't want. Mm-hmm. She makes her way to the doctor, sees some random child before she enters, goes into the barber shop, and suddenly is like, oh yes, the doctor, you can fully trust the doctor. You can fully trust the doctor. The doctor is the greatest person ever, which, once again, we never saw that development. She's just spouting stuff that didn't even come across as like how we saw the doctor before, because she was ticked off a little bit with the doctor in the well episode because of how things turned out.
Yes.
And then we find out that the guy who the storyteller at the beginning who admires the doctor decides suddenly, hey, now that you have the doctor, you can let us all go, right?
And it was like a betrayal to the doctor.
Which was weird. But again, Gatwa got to actually be a little bit like the doctor with the way he played out the whole event. So I did like that. I liked how he found the guy's tree, essentially, in the ship. Mm-hmm. And they used it with a very short story to blow the ship up.
Well, and I like it because the one thing I've always known about Afrikaner culture, from anything I learned, admittedly more so in school and some books I read, is that their history is really very storytelling based.
I liked also, though, how the daughter used the hair, styled his hair, and told the story about them using hair selling as a way to have a maze.
Yes. To
escape slavery.
Yes.
So I did like that aspect. I loved how she did that to the doctor's hair. But at the end, they forgive the guy, the guy who wanted revenge on the gods, and it was really, it got weird at the end. But I really did like that episode quite a bit. I felt that though should have been a two-parter.
Oh yes, no, because
there was too much story in the engine.
Well, yes, yes, you're adorable.
But I like that one quite a bit too. That is kind of tied with Lux as my second favorite of the season. I'll probably still pick Lux if I had to over it, just because it should have been a two-parter.
Oh yeah.
And that's the one problem with these being 8-episode seasons. There's no room for multi-part stories. Mm-hmm. Because the finale has to be the multi-parter.
Which makes no sense. It doesn't always. You could always have it where they weave in together too, because Matt Smith had that happen. You had the same thing with Tennant, Capaldi, even past Doctors. They had up to 12-episode stories, but.
So our next one is the Interstellar Song Contest.
I enjoy shows occasionally. I don't like it a lot. But I enjoy shows that are like The Voice, all of that. But this one, I expected it to be a little bit more musical. But this actually did feel like a racism episode. Because you have a planet.
Well, it was a racism episode.
Well, I know. Well, it felt more like it was.
But it was also shoving some of that racism too much.
I still think it was necessary because basically the Interstellar Song Contest is promoted, like its biggest sponsor is called Poppy's Honey. We find out during the episode that Poppy's Honey is on this planet called like Helia or something like that. And basically it is made of people. It's
essentially
it's kind
but
of,
they're not people because they have horns, so they're demons.
Because their names because
No, it wasn't people.
It was the flowers.
They were kicked off their planet because the flowers
yes
is what gave
but they were treated like slaves, second-class citizens, because of the fact that their race is called Hellions because they have horns that look like devil's horns. And so you find out throughout this episode that this one girl infiltrated the song contest because of the fact that her boyfriend, her best friend, they wanted to speak out against Poppy's Honey and the decimation to their planet because they went into a never-ending war and things like that, and how it really destroyed their people. So they take control, basically open up the airlock, and all of these people fly out, essentially to their doom. However, the doctor, seeing that this was about to happen, really
made an airfield, like a bubble outside.
So that people weren't dead.
But, okay, so we have, once again, a couple of problems with this, besides the whole, I was thinking American Idol for this whole thing. But we have Belinda, who seems to have forgotten that she must get to Earth before
7:30 a.m. on May
24th. She has completely forgotten this because now she's like, "Ooh, we get to see a song contest? Like, where is this coming from?" So,
well, he also had the guitar thing because they had to do something there.
Yes, but she seems all into this thing. Her whole I must do this seems to have just disappeared. We don't know why. We still don't know exactly why she needs to get there or whatever. And it clearly isn't that important since she's given up on caring about it. And so she ends up not getting sucked into space because the thing ends up closing on her.
And a few other people.
And so everyone gets into space, even the doctor's sucked in there, and they're all frozen. But so these terrorists are going to kill all these people to make the Poppy Company, to hurt them. Which, there's a lot of flaws in that plan, because as we've seen before, corporations are above the law, so they're not truly responsible if something happens like that.
Oh, jaded much.
But, well, one singer, her agent, and Belinda survived, and these two guys who are a nurse
and one of the people who worked for the corporation.
Yes.
Well, for the Interstellar Song Contest.
This gay couple, and
they're such sweethearts.
They but
can you hand me the candy thing because I need to get some sugar.
Go ahead. It's probably all melted, but Belinda is like, "Oh, the doctor will save us. The doctor is great. The doctor is amazing. I fully trust the doctor. I've been with the doctor for so long."
But we find out that the one singer from the contest that's still there is also a Hellion.
But she had to cut her horns off to hide herself.
And when her agent finds out, he abandons her.
Yep. Well, and then so the doctor is in space frozen, And he starts having images of Susan, his granddaughter that we haven't seen since season 2 of the original show. It's like, help me, Obi-Wan. Help me, Doctor. You're my only hope. Help me, Doctor. You're my only hope. So he breaks free of the ice, gets himself back onto the space station, thinks Belinda is part of the people up there. So he goes apeshit. He threatens the terrorists first, which I was like, finally. But nothing, the terrorists like, yeah, you can't do anything. So the gay couple helps the doctor out, gets him to the central, and as he's making his threats.
They all have to keep on saying gay couple.
Well, okay, whatever. But, well, the reason I'm saying is because they were really pushing in your face the fact that they were gay. They weren't just characters. They were really pushing on that they're gay characters, which they didn't really need to do. I thought they were cool characters, but they really kept pushing that.
Well, and their relationship, the one thing that I really liked about them is that their relationship seemed very natural. Like, it wasn't a force.
No, which is why I hated that they were trying to force that make sure you knew that every moment of the way. But then Belinda sees the doctor doing the thing. She's like, that's not the doctor. I know who the doctor is. That's not him. Again, you've been with him for 4 episodes. And the first one, you didn't trust him at all. The second one, you still didn't really trust him, but you saw he has good intentions. The third one.
See, I'm letting him go because he was so frustrated at the latter half of this season. So like, I'm just letting him.
Okay, so the doctor comes in, does his little thing that finally he's torturing the terrorist. Torturing him. I'm like, that's the doctor when he's pissed off. And then Belinda shows up and he's like, oh, okay. I went too far. The dude was just about to kill 3 trillion people, but you went too far? So what does he do? He gives like a little speech for the terrorists to have this little moment of, oh. But then the Hellion lady gets to do her song and reveals that she's a Hellion before she does her song. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, I'm not going to listen to this song.
Well, and that was my biggest thing that was accurate because in this day and age,
but then at the
people
end,
do that. They refuse. They'll close their ears down if they don't agree with
But
something.
then, because one of the guys started clapping, everyone was like, oh, I guess we can clap. Because again, it was bystander syndrome, where nobody was reacting because since not one person was reacting, nobody was willing to react. But the moment one person reacted, then everybody was willing to react.
Knows it's okay.
Yes.
Because they're given that permission to say, oh, okay, this is okay for us to do.
Yes. Bystander syndrome. But, so the episode could have been worse. But the problem I found out with both this and Story in the Engine, the writers of those episodes were not given any information on Belinda. They were told, you don't know who the companion is, so just write a generic script part for the companion. We'll fill in the blanks afterwards. Because they wrote the episodes before Belinda was actually written and casted.
Seriously?
Yes, because they wrote the scripts for season 1 and 2 together. So they had no idea if Ruby was going to be the companion or if it was going to be someone else. So they were told to write a generic companion script for these episodes because they won't know who the companion is at that time. So that is why Belinda got the shaft in these last 2 episodes, because nobody had any idea who she was at that time of this script writing.
Well, and the terrible thing is, if you think about it that way, you could be acting as though the companion has been with the doctor through season 1 and 2 to say this is not the doctor, you can trust the doctor, and things like that.
And so the other aspect, that little girl that Belinda sees, that's like grown up a bit, is supposed to be Poppy from Space Babies.
Oh.
The only way you know it's Poppy is because she's listed in the credits as Poppy. But you don't know why Belinda's seeing her, because it was Ruby that met her, not Belinda.
Well, yeah.
So again, none of this was written for Belinda. This was written for possibly Ruby. They had no idea who Belinda was. So that is shitty ass writing right there alone. Because if you are supposed to write a companion and you don't know, it's not a situation where, like with Jamie for Troughton, for the first few stories was written for just Ben and Polly to be the companion, and they decided at the last minute to add Jamie in, so they divvied up the dialogue between the three of them.
Yes.
That's one situation where, okay, that was a last minute addition. Here, they had no idea who the companion was going to be, so they were just told to write in generic dialogue, and RTD would figure it out later. Which I think is why one of the credits for one episode, the person it was both a person who wrote it and RTD was credited as co-writer for the episode, because I guess he wrote in the Belinda stuff himself, so he gets co-write credit for the episode. So we've already got this BS thing going on production-wise that's already hindering the episodes.
Well, yes.
Then we come to our two-part finale.
Oh, and
Wish World and the Reality War.
Can we just not give a full description because it sucked? Because Ruby was in this as well, and I feel like they treated Ruby like shit in this two-parter.
The only thing that makes sense was especially in part 2. Okay, basics. So in Interstellar Contest, we finally come to learn Miss Flood is Ronnie from the original series, and she also bi-generates into 2 versions of Ronnie: Miss Flood Ronnie and Ronnie.
Ronnie.
And I do like the theme song for Ronnie. The one thing I will give credit is that the music to this season's, while it has not been Murray Gold's best Doctor Who soundtrack compared to his previous seasons, it's certainly a hell of a lot better compared to what Whittaker's soundtrack was.
Sure.
Because his music can still make a bad episode good. Because his music really does help make the bad episodes of Smith's run still worth watching.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that.
But so reality has been altered. At the end of the last episode, the TARDIS doors blow up. Well, the Doctor and Belinda wake up as a married couple, and they have a daughter named Poppy, the space baby. Okay? And he works at an insurance firm, which is unit headquarters. Every employee is unit, in fact, along with Susan Tech there. And Kate is a very stern, mean bitch of a boss.
A dragon lady.
And I will say the Doctor dressed up the way he did, was with the bowler hat, made me think of the lawyer from A Series of Unfortunate Events. I thought the Doctor was going to take the Baudelaire children to Count Olaf, or in this case, the toy maker, to take them off to live with him. That's all I thought of was with the way Gatwa was dressed in this episode, and his mannerisms. It was just the lawyer.
And on the television, we do see Conrad reading stories of the Doctor.
Reading stories because he is the god of this
Here,
world. Now, I did like the cover for his book was actually based on the original Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone cover, which was kind of cool. But yeah, Conrad is the voice of the world, the god of the world, because the episode starts out with Ronnie kidnapping a baby who can make wishes.
He was the 7th son of the 7th son of the 7th son. Well, there are some beliefs that because 666 is the sign of the devil, where there's a lot of lore throughout history that the 7th son of the 7th son of the 7th son, or it could be daughter, sometimes you have it flipped depending on storytelling, has the power of God. Because 6 is the number of the devil, 7 is the number of the god.
Okay. But So she kidnaps this baby and recreates reality, which has these weird bone dinosaurs that are not actually there, at least in part one. They're not actually there. Mel is a neighbor to the doctor and Belinda, and she talks about how great it is to not have to be single because she doesn't have a family to take care of. Like the doctor, when he's complaining, yeah, it's been tough with Belinda and Poppy, and Ruby has full memories of the real world, and
memories, but not memories.
And then stuff happens. The Ronnie reveals that her plot is to bring Omega back because he's now somehow trapped in a thing called the Underverse, even though that's not where he was in the classic series, but okay, sure. And this timey-wimey crap.
That's why we're not going to go into it, because I hate these episodes. I actually try to...
Well, and then we had, so young Frank Grillo in the insurance firm wants to ask the boss out, Kate. And the doctor's like, well, you're a very fine-looking man, so you should do it. And he's like, excuse me?
So one thing that you find out is everything is heteronormative.
Because it's all made in Conrad's image. And we just... And so disabled people like Wheelchair Girl from Unit are all ignored by society. They still exist, which is weird because Rose was wiped out of existence.
Because she is not heteronormative.
But
even though technically a trans person is heterosexual, because Chaz Bono is a heterosexual man.
Whatever. So we have this long drawn out scene of all this disabled people who are living homeless, which they looked pretty damn clean for being homeless people. And that Ruby goes there because Ruby recognizes the girl, and they have this talk about everything. And part one ends with the doctor and people being wiped out and doctors falling off a balcony. Part two begins with everyone, with the doctor, Anita, showing up from the hotel because she became a hotel employee for that special hotel, gets him out of there, brings him into the hotel, and the world just resets. Because the whole point was not to destroy the world, it was to reset the world over and over and over again. So have they only been living the same day over continuously?
I kind of thought it was like a Groundhog's Day type of
because that also doesn't make sense. That so the doctor, Belinda, and Poppy have only been a family for one day. That's just repeating itself over.
No, I don't think it was doing exactly that, but it repeated itself where it needed to.
Well, I got the implication that the whole day resets over and over again, which means they've only been a family for one day, which, okay. But Anita opens up the door for the doctor to go into the insurance firm, unit headquarters, and he gets everyone to remember who they are. But Anita's whole job is to be Hodor. The entire episode. She is Hodor.
Holding the door.
That's it. She is a literal doorstop. Doormat. That's it. That's her whole purpose. And then Ronnie brings Omega out, who is a giant CGI beast. Basically, he's a generic Castlevania villain. He eats Ronnie.
Yes, which makes no sense.
Miss Flood flees.
Yes.
But we have this sequence of Ronnie coming down because she before that, she tells the doctor, I want to recreate Gallifrey, which is like the third time now Gallifrey would be recreated since the Time Lords have died again.
I know. I'm like, how many times are we going to
recreate this? Because the Time Lords are sterile from the Master's bomb that he used on Gallifrey in the Whittaker second season of Whittaker. But how is the Doctor sterile when she at that time wasn't even on Gallifrey when the Master used the time bomb? Because she came to Gallifrey and Master had all the Time Lords in those bodies of Cybermen.
Well, the Doctor also has a granddaughter, so the assumption is if he had a granddaughter, he also had a daughter or son.
And that was the other thing. In part 1, he's sitting there at the table, and Susan shows up on the TV. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. And then it goes to Rogue saying, Doctor, you need to help me. Doctor, help me. And that was it. That was all that was Rogue. We never even learned anything about Rogue in the second part.
Mm-hmm.
And but then she's like, she's like, well, but the doctor's like, well, I have a daughter with Belinda, so can't she be used then to help bring back Gallifrey? No, because she is impure. And even I swear, I was groaning. The cast on screen were groaning, and I swear that was not meant. That was not scripted. The way they groaned felt like they were like, we're gonna keep that in because that just fit too well with that scene. But, and then yeah, Omega, Castlevania boss, eats the Ronnie.
Oh, it was so.
And now we're the doctor then goes Resident Evil on Omega because, which, okay, makes no sense because RTD said he wanted to change probably Disney felt the sonic screwdriver looked too much like a gun. So that's why they changed it to look like a mouse pad. But then the doctor goes and it's like,
how does it look like a gun? It looks like a pencil.
I don't know. That's what RTD said when season 1 was premiering. That he changed the doctor's sonic screwdriver so it doesn't look like a gun. And
never thought it did, but okay.
Ooh, it's 2:00.
I have a sonic screwdriver. But never looked like a gun. Actually, I have 2 of them. Well, and then he's like, I don't have anything to defeat Omega with. I thought he was actually had an idea. He was just playing. And he backs in. And he's like, oh, I have this gun. And it's the time thing they'd been using all season. All he was missing was some sort of corny-ass Resident Evil one-liner like, so then we...
like, you want to eat time? Here's all the time you can eat.
Well, and then after all of that's done...
And we're only 30 minutes into this episode. The episode has another 35 minutes to go.
Honestly, this episode, I'm just going to skip forward. Let me do Cliff Notes real quick. We're just going to do Cliff Notes because I can't take this anymore. So 1, Ruby goes to Conrad, says, I forgive you. He goes, blips out, has a life where he lives his life as normal as possible. Nobody gives a shit.
But then she's pissed when they finally bring the world back to normal and he's living a happy life. Yeah. She's pissed that he's living a happy life.
Then, skipping Cliff Notes, because I can't stand this anymore right now, we then move on. We have, first, they're trying to fix the world. They put Belinda and Poppy into a chamber like they did first season with Ruby to kind of keep her safe when the full world's reset so Poppy doesn't disappear. Poppy doesn't disappear right away. However, one really cool scene they have is when they go into the TARDIS, they do all these things where they're folding Poppy's jacket
and they're just folding it
out to existence. They talk. Then you see all these.
Okay, stop though. I did like that scene though when they're talking and they're just folding her coat up continuously until it's gone, and then they have no memory of who Poppy is.
And then Ruby is like, what about Poppy? What about Poppy? Everybody gets pissed at her.
The doctor gets pissed at her.
And then...
Hold on. We can slow down.
I'm cliff noting because I don't want you to take another hour.
I'm not... But... Okay, but... The doctor instantly dismisses her on that. She's like, what about Ruby? Oh, there is no Ruby. She was a
Poppy.
Yeah. What did I say?
Ruby.
Okay. Yeah, Ruby says what about Poppy, and the doctor dismisses her, saying that's a space baby. Instantly, knowing that they just reset history, but doesn't acknowledge that Poppy could have been real. Completely distraught. Like I was like, what? He just basically told her off. That was so out of character for the doctor.
So then the doctor, after he listens a little bit more, is like, oh, maybe we did do something when we reset. So he then goes into the TARDIS, leaving everybody there, decides he's going to use up his life to fix this. So you then see clips of him and Belinda where they're talking about the fact
No, that's later. We first have Whitaker show up. The doctor, Whitaker
was probably the only good part of this episode.
She shows up and has a conversation, which I thought she did a great job in that scene. Mm-hmm. She did far better than her entire 3 seasons.
Yes.
She has a conversation. The doctor then says, "I love you." And she's like, "You what?" He's like, "Yeah, I say that now." She's like, "I should say that to Yaz." "Oh, you never will." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she leaves. But I thought that was a really well done scene. Then the doctor, yes, he does his energy, puts his energy into the TARDIS to reset history so that Poppy exists. He goes back to Earth and Poppy is now Belinda's.
Well, then you see scenes of Belinda saying that the reason why she wanted to get home.
That's after.
Oh my God, fine, then go.
I'm trying to get there.
You are taking way too long. You're taking longer than the fucking episode.
So he goes to Belinda and finds out she now has Poppy as her daughter, and it's from a regular human. Then,
just go.
No.
Then he sees scenes of how she wants to go home by 7:30 because she has to pick up Poppy from babysitter.
Which RTD says that was always her reasoning for wanting to go home, but that doesn't make sense with all the writing.
All right, so moving on.
So then the doctor says bye and goes and shuts the TARDIS fully off, goes outside, kaboom, and instantly pops Billy Piper.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was awesome.
Now, what was my reaction?
Oh, you were pissed off.
But how was I reacting? What was the first thing I said, though?
What the fuck?
No.
What?
What? Kind of like how David Tennant does it.
Oh.
The first thing I said was, what?
I actually thought it was awesome. But
what the hell was that?
This season turned out to be a waste.
This is the sad part. Gatwa, so much potential at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Utterly pointless. His entire run is pointless.
I actually think he got shafted worse than Baker did.
Absolutely. You could skip this Doctor Who run and not miss anything because nothing relevant happened. Unit, once again, in this 2-part, stood around, did nothing. But it turns out their building has a rotator, so the top half can rotate around because there's guns on there. And now the bone creatures that were not real in the last episode are actually real in this episode. Also, Mal shows up riding her scooter into Unit and says, "You guys don't understand how hard it is to raise a family." But in part 1, she said she loved being single. So I don't get what that was about.
Okay, moving on, because this took way too long.
Well, I told you it was going to take a while because we had several episodes, 2 seasons to go through.
No, you are just so angry. That's why it took so long.
Whatever.
See?
Are you saying you're not having fun?
Oh, I'm having fun. I'm just saying that you're going too long because you're so angry.
That's the point of this live stream.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
But.
Oh my God.
Okay, you ready to continue?
I don't know. Are you ready to continue?
Okay, go on.
What?
Well, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to do my cliff notes, but you ruined on me.
Because you were skipping certain parts I did want to talk about. That I thought you.
On about part. I don't care. I'm having fun, but oh my God. His rage is worse than what it was when we were actually watching the fucking show.
Because I had time to process everything.
I personally thought I will keep mine short and sweet on purpose because I really did think this season was an absolute waste. I thought it was outside of a few episodes, it was the majority of the time boring, and it actually felt like a chore to watch Doctor Who, than it actually felt to enjoy. And that was a problem for me because Belinda's actress seemed great, but you could tell she was floundering because she didn't have much to work with. Obviously, production, that makes sense, but I actually thought she was highly underutilized. I also thought the fact that Ruby was here for snippets was a disservice to the new Doctor. Like, I thought it was great to see Ruby, but I thought it was a disservice to the new companion because it wasn't like during Donna's season where you had other companions showing up, but that was the progression of the story.
Mm-hmm.
This here did not seem like it was a progression of the story. It just seemed like, oh shit, we have some things that we need
Doctor,
to do.
We're all your children.
Oh, that was the worst sentence I've ever heard.
I don't know. I think I was having a discussion with someone on Twitter today. He's like, I don't understand what the problem is with that line. I'm like, the line itself might not be, it's bad, but it might not be horrible. It's the delivery. Because it feels like Kate, she thought she was good, it feels like the way she said that line was unnatural. Like as if she was practicing it. And they said, okay, we got that. And she's like, wait, but I didn't actually, we were recording? Oh yeah, that we only need one take of that. That was horrible. The reason the bi-generation exists is, it's a way to procreate since we can't procreate anymore. It was like, what?
But they're the same people.
That just, yeah.
That actually seems icky.
Just, so are you and then I was like, okay, so are you going to be your own grandpa? So does this mean that Susan, who never shows up in this episode at all, making that whole help me Obi-Wan Kenobi scene pointless? Yes, Gatwa's entire run is pointless. Nothing relevant happened. He accomplished nothing. The only thing he did as a doctor in this series, his doctor is the crying doctor. That's it. I have nothing to really praise him for his doctor. He didn't get to do anything as a whole.
No, I absolutely agree.
At least Whittaker had moments, like a defining moment was the Witchfinders General I mentioned earlier. Well, why would I listen to a woman? Or even
when they went back to Rosa Parks.
She still had moments that truly were Doctor-esque. Here, that were standout. Here, Gatwa has nothing that stands out, which is a real shame.
Do you want to go back to comments or?
Well, okay.
Because I don't have much else to say.
All right. Well, how would you fix Doctor Who going forward? If you were put in charge of the next season, how would you do it?
I actually came up with the title, so I already know how I fix Doctor Who. Put another break in between. It's one of those things where this is how I'll put it for this question. When McCoy ended the Doctor Who run in what was it, 88? 89. And then we didn't have something else happen until McGonn's movie in
96, I think.
96. So you had a number of years in between. I think it would be helpful to have almost like 6 to 10 years pass. Because since 2005, right?
20 years now.
Since 2005, it's been ongoing. And one of the challenges that I do agree with from a lot of the statements made about the classic run of Doctor Who is it went from 63 to 89. Really did not have a break any point in time in between it. And there's only so many stories you can tell. There's only so many ways that you can put the Doctor and his varying catalog of companions into danger before it feels like you're not world building, you're going into comfort. And while I understand why so many people were disappointed with the cancellation of Doctor Who in 89, but having listened to a lot of the interviews, a lot of the storytelling, having watched all of the episodes, having heard from the actors and actresses at the same time, the only way to keep fondness for the franchise is to stop, to have a break. Because 89 to 2005, even though you had that movie, you had a lengthy break. You actually had a full generation break. Because essentially, a long majority of the millennial generation, you didn't have Doctor Who. Because the millennial generation, or Generation Y, took place from 81 all the way through to 97. So millennials got older and had an opportunity in 2005 to appreciate in a new generation how Doctor Who could be. They watched the classic episodes, and now their generation had their own Doctor. Just like the baby boomers essentially had theirs.
Well, and like I never even heard of, well, outside of Simpsons, but I never recognized it. I never heard of Doctor Who until 2009.
Well, that same here. And which amazes me because the widespread nature of all my friends groups and everything, I should have heard of it. But I actually think when I selected the title Right Time to Die, mainly for RTD, after it came back in 2005 and stayed through, I actually thought after Whittaker's run, it was going to cancel and we were going to take a break. And then when we had Ncuti get announced because RTD was coming back, he made a relationship, BBC made a relationship with Bad Wolf, which in turn made a relationship with Disney. And you had these three groups working together. I was excited for RTD because I did like his run. The one thing I forgot is that time changes people. The way RTD was in the early 2000s and coming nearly 20 years later, he's a different man. All of the fans watching Doctor Who are different people. So what we got now, also thinking about the relationship with Disney and knowing the current culture, because that's the purpose of Doctor Who, to speak to the culture. Having that happen, RTD isn't who RTD was. He's a different person.
And there's also the possibility that he had more restrictions from BBC back then compared to this time around.
And so I actually think there shouldn't be another Doctor Who season right now. I think it's the right time to die. I don't think there's a way to fix Doctor Who, in my personal opinion. I think we need to let 10 to 15 years pass. If you want, do what they did back in the 90s and do a couple of movies.
Or specials.
However you want to do it. You're not going to take Doctor Who out of the zeitgeist because it's still going to exist. You're still going to have fans, new and old, coming to the franchise, but let it breathe.
I'm all for a 10-year break. However, this is how I would continue Doctor Who going forward if I were put in charge of it. First episode, the Doctor wakes up on the floor of the TARDIS, has no idea what's going on. He knows he's the Doctor. He knows he's a Time Lord, but he has no memory of anything else. So it can start.
So kind of like what they did with Pertwee, in a way, for like the first episode.
Similar. He goes to Earth or wherever, gains a companion, and they go on and then they go through the problem of that story. End. The whole season are serialized stories like the old series. No overarching plot, no main continuity, just adventure 1, story, beginning, middle, end. Mm-hmm. Adventure 2, beginning, middle, end. 13 episodes, a two-part story, 3-part story, two-part.
So like 30 minutes things.
No, it'd be the hour-long
Oh.
episodes, but they're 2-parters and a 3-parter in there. But they're standalone, serialized stories, no overarching plot. Doctor has no memory, so anytime he meets a classic villain, it's like brand new to him. He doesn't know their weakness. He feels like he's meeting them for the first time. And that's how the next several seasons go. Just a hobo in his box, going on time-traveling adventures.
So a madman in the box again.
With his companion, and that's it.
Well, one thing they've forgotten during the Whittaker and the Ncuti eras is the key thing that has been said for so many series. The Doctor lies. The Doctor is a madman. And
first companion, fine, it can be a human from planet Earth, but after that, no more modern-day human companions. The next time he gets a new companion, it's got to be an alien from another world. It doesn't matter if it's a human from like the future, like say, what's her name?
Zoe, not Zoe.
My favorite.
Dodo.
No, my favorite, Leela.
Leela. Okay.
Or anything like that.
See, I would go with something like Jamie.
Or well, yeah, Jamie, who was from the
hundreds of years prior.
Yeah. Somebody who's not a modern day human. Like for the first one, I'd keep it a modern day human just to refamiliarize the whole franchise with people. But yeah, the Doctor has amnesia, doesn't remember anything about the past. Except, like I said, he's the Doctor and he travels through time. And that's how I would do it for the next several seasons.
Well, and the reason why I think it's the right time to die is because they did risky things, which I think is important. Having a female doctor, people have asked for that for decades. Having a doctor who's a person of color, people have been asking that for decades because there's not a lot of diversity at times within the Doctor Who universe. However,
as long as they don't do it like a checklist, like Unit.
Well, and the problem is that our world today is not as open-minded as we truly want it to be. There's a lot of open-minded people, but not as open-minded as
the last 10 years have shown how closed-minded people still want to be. And I actually, it was technically always there. It's just we didn't know it as much because we didn't have social media to exploit it. Mm-hmm. Social media has really exploited it. That you can really see, and it allows the hateful people to really express themselves without any consequences online. Because there are so many people online that would never say what they say in the real world. Some would. I mean, I have no problem. If you're an asshole online, I have no problem calling you an asshole in the real world.
Well, I'm the type of person, anything I say online, I would say to a person to their face. Mm-hmm. And that's because of how I was raised. I did not have social media. But I did not get into social media until probably, 2004, 2005?
I didn't even have Facebook until you created me one in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
But now...
Because I was sick of your friends coming on my Facebook.
Now, for the Timeless Child arc, like, let's say that needed to have a conclusion because people want closure on that. I would have it be revealed. The Timeless Child is not actually the Doctor. It's Susan. The Doctor begins to feel so guilty for what he did to the Timeless Child. Mm-hmm. He takes her off of Gallifrey to get her away from the Time Lords, becomes the Doctor to atone for the experimentation because he would be the one who experimented on the Timeless Child.
Well,
he flees Gallifrey to become to redeem himself, atone for his crimes. That's why he becomes the Doctor. That's why he acts very miserable at the start of the series when he first kidnaps Barbara and Ian. And it was them that helped him start to feel that he is atoning for what he did.
Well, it's been around since the initial
And
doctor that he was not a good person all the time.
He never did. The fugitive doctor, Joe Martin's doctor, is not before Hartnell. It will continue when the Time Lords took Troughton's doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of regenerating into Pertwee Boy right away, he regenerates into the fugitive doctor. That's why she's considered the fugitive doctor, because she stops them she's run as they regenerate her, Troughton into Martin. She flees Gallifrey once again, and she's wanted because they want her back because she fled from them before they finished their process, and eventually they acquire her, turn her into Pertwee, wipe out his memory of everything that occurred between him and between Troughton and him, and send him to Earth. And he's exiled on Earth. The reason they break the TARDIS down so he can't flee Earth is because they don't want the heat on him from the government people that are after her to die down before they allow him to travel again through space and time.
Okay, I like that.
So that's how I would fix those retcons.
Let's go to comments because
I don't think we're gonna have time to read them all because of how many it seems like there are. But
so, well, then why don't you go to some of the comments? Not to disregard anybody's comments. I do want to say that.
Okay, and so to answer Dragon's question from earlier, that I wouldn't even touch the bi-generation thing. I will just let it go where it is. And real quick, the other thing I wanted to say in the book here. So the first Doctor, 54 hours, 24 minutes, 36 seconds is how long the time is for that. Second Doctor, 47 hours, 19 minutes, 12 seconds. Third Doctor, 51 hours, 53 minutes, 8 seconds. Fourth Doctor, 69 hours, 6 minutes, 4 seconds. Fifth, 30 hours, 3 seconds. Sixth, 17 hours, 18 minutes, 4 seconds. Seventh, 17 hours, 5 minutes, 31 seconds. Eighth, 1 hour, 24 minutes, 34 seconds. Ninth, 9 hours, 30 minutes, 38 seconds. 10th Doctor, 38 hours, 11 minutes, 18 seconds. And up to the Snowman, Matt Smith was 26 hours, 40 minutes, and 46 seconds. So the grand total time of Doctor Who up to Snowman was 362 hours, 53 minutes, and 54 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And Doctor Who, it was 1,306,434 seconds of Doctor Who at that time.
Oh, wow.
All right. So, yes, typically we would go through all these comments, read every single one of them, but I'm really, really hungry. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Oh, yes. Gatwa was in Barbie as one of the Kens.
Yes.
Let's see.
Which I knew that.
97 missing episodes. How are there 97 missing episodes, Star Wars fan? So back then, BBC would reuse, when they would record a show onto a tape, they would eventually wipe the tape so they could reuse the tape because it was cheaper than buying a brand new tape to record. So it was cheaper to reuse materials than to buy new ones. So they would wipe out old episodes with no consideration that they would ever want to put them out on video or show them again later on. That's why there's missing episodes. So they found episodes because they've been found in foreign countries, or private collectors ended up buying them from somehow acquiring them, that they came across them and it's like, oh, well, I have this, so here you go. That's why there's episodes missing. Yeah, actually, a few people answered that. BBC did a bad job with the archive. Let's see. Arrowverse, Dragon. Okay, Kamen Rider 64. Can you guys find similarities between Doctor Who and Power Rangers? I actually call Doctor Who the British Toku series.
Yes.
I compare it a lot more to Ultraman since they both started at the same time and both had extensive breaks. Let's see. Theories. I thought season 2 first, hello. I thought season 2 started on a strong note, but it did not end well with the finale. Nope.
I agree.
Udis is here. Hello.
Hi.
I can see similarities between Doctor Who and El Chapulín, Colorado. Chapulín went to feudal Japan once and also fought against a baby from Jupiter. Not familiar with
I'll have to look that up.
Chapulín. The Arrowverse said the story in the engine is a really good episode. I think it's awesome they brought back the fugitive doctor. This is the reason why I like Ruby more than I like Belinda. The doctor has a sonic screwdriver while Chapulín has a squeaky sledgehammer.
Ah!
It's because there's a theory that Chapulín may be a Time Lord.
Oh, Lord.
My biggest surprise was the Interstellar Contest when Susan returns after 42 years. Too bad they didn't do anything with her. Let's see. They bring back 3 of the 4 previous Doctors. Even in the first Doctor has a different actor playing him. He's the only Doctor that they have recast twice in Doctor Who.
Oh, Hartnell.
Yeah, for Hartnell. But the guy in the 5 Doctors and now...
Argus's actor from Harry Potter.
Yeah, David Bradley. Which I think that'd be really cool if they decide to remake the missing stories from Hartnell. Some of them
David
using Bradley. Let's see. Davison was 31 when he became the Doctor. He was 33 when he left.
Yep.
We haven't seen Susan since season 2 of the classic series. Yeah, well, yeah, that is right. I did say since season 2, but I did forget about the 5 Doctors when I said that. RTD shouldn't have written the final 2 episodes of Gatwa's final season. Which World is not great. And then Reality War sucks. Outside of seeing Whittaker. Both Ronnie and Omega were wasted. Totally agree. Completely agree.
Excuse me.
And that was the other thing. What brought up earlier. Why did Conrad have to exist? Why couldn't it just turn out that Ruby was the Wish Baby? Or why couldn't Ronnie just use the Wish Baby to reset the world herself without Conrad? It sucks that you can see that the scene with Whittaker comes back and then the final scene with Belinda and Ncuti final scene were reshot.
Yep.
What are your ultimate goals in life? To conquer the world!
No, really.
To conquer the world!
Really?
That is my goal.
Bad, happy, bad.
Get better writers and either tell RTD to either stop writing and just be a showrunner or fire him and find a new showrunner. I would say I actually want to see what J. Michael Straczynski can do to Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, he's coming in, isn't he?
No. But
he said he would like to.
Yeah, he apparently said that he has his own script ideas that he's written out, but that he would love BBC to read, but BBC has this thing against wanting an American to do Doctor Who. I think at this point, an American should do Doctor Who. Gray Hopper says hi.
Hello.
And are you guys going to be watching the Doctor Who spinoff, the series War Between the Land and the Sea? I don't know. I'm
open, but
they put out the trailer the day of the finale, and I just was not in the mood to watch a trailer for a spinoff at that point for Doctor Who. I've seen a screenshot somebody posted, and I just think the fish creature looks awful.
We probably need to watch it.
They gave the fish creature a human face, just like the frickin' Silurians. Why does every creature have to have a human face nowadays?
Okay.
That's the last comment.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
I am
Have
super hungry.
a great rest of your
But
day.
For those
I get to read resumes later.
For those who watch this later, if you stuck around for the whole 2.5 hours, what did you think of this season? Let us know in the comments. Click like, subscribe, the bell notification, whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. You can support us on Patreon, Bluesky, at Toku Network, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, at Kaiju no Kami. Websites, creativitybydesign.com. There's Kaiju no Kami merchandise you can purchase. That's linked on the YouTube. There's also 2 GoFundMes, one to help the channel, one to help for health stuff on there. That's also in the description below. And thank you so much for watching and watching us rant about Doctor Who.
Well, him rant.
And tell us your favorite Doctor in the comments as well. Until next time. Bye. Wait, I ranted. You ranted too.
You ranted a lot more.
You ranted more.
You ranted
and you know,
more.